Good morning and welcome to the School of Communications Communication Careers Week event. I'm Susan Napoleon. This week we have been hosting several panel discussions with professionals representing a variety of industries. These professionals have been providing some great tips and insights on career development, and we are very happy you joined us today. We encourage you to join us on or follow us on social media, and that's at hashtag SO Careers Week. You'll see that in the chat banner. And now I'd like to introduce you to our moderator from the Department of Audio Aesthetics and Technology, Carl Napa. Good morning, Carl.
Morning, Susan. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the panelists for joining us today in today's webinar. And just take the time of the day and join us is great, especially I know everybody has a busy day. And it's nice to have some audio professionals talking to our students today. And on today's panel are three professionals. And first is Jerome Wilson, from broadcast engineer from KTVI Fox 2. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Garrison Brown from TSI Global, correct?
Hey, yes, that's correct.
Engineer. And Tony Black, a producer engineer from the New York City region, now kind of hanging out in St. Louis for a minute or two during this pandemic. So welcome, everybody. Glad you could make it, like I said earlier, and we're really excited to have you here and for our students to be able to kind of pick your brains a little bit and learn about your path. But before we start, do you mind just kind of like going through and telling us a little bit about yourselves and your current roles, but also how you got here? Like, what was your path to getting into the music business? Who would like to start? Garrison?
Sure, I'll give it a go. So my current role at TSI Global is an audio video systems engineer. That includes responsibilities of quoting systems, system design, commissioning, DSP standing for digital signal processing, programming, and anything that requires assistance through the sales department. And then I'm also a Webster alum, graduated in 2017 from the audio department. My path that I got there, through the audio department, I was able to make connections through anybody in the film and video department working on student films. And then one of my fellow audio students graduated a year before me, happened to get a job at TSI Global. And about 6 months before I got my job, as soon as I graduated, he was really pushing me to apply. I was like, I'll get to it. And then eventually at the student summit, he pushed me again. It's like, hey, you should really apply. And then I was like, I'll get to it. And then finally, when I graduated, applied for TSI, got the job there. And then I've been there for about 3.5 years now. So in short, that's kind of how I got to TSI. And we can go more into the past of what I've done beforehand, before Webster.
When you say your friend asked you to apply, what was the time frame from when he asked you to apply to when you applied?
6 months.
Really?
Yeah. I was so focused on school. I was also in the track team at school too, doing a bunch of extracurriculars. And I was like, I'll get to it. And I wasn't really worried about it at that time.
You were still going to school when you applied?
Yes. Well, graduated in May of 17 and then applied towards the end of May. So within a few weeks after graduating, I applied. And then it was about a 3-week process or so from first interview to them offering me a job. But from the time my friend said apply until I actually applied was 5.5 months. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
But you were still in school. It wasn't like you were already out of school and like just hanging out, chilling on the couch.
Correct. Yeah, I was doing part-time and I was doing part-time work at Logic Systems at that point too. So I did already have a job and an internship and going to school. So that I wasn't just sitting on the couch. I was busy doing other things in audio.
The way you said it just sounded like you were just hanging out, not doing nothing.
No,
I didn't think that would be the truth.
Not like that.
Cool. Thanks. Jerome?
All right, so I'm a broadcast engineer at KTVI Fox 2. We are merged with another TV station called KPLR. So it's essentially 2 news stations in one. We are pumping out about 14 hours of news daily, which is the most in the St. Louis region for TV stations. My role entails operating live news trucks. I'm a photographer. I'm an editor. I work the E&G receiving room. That's basically getting signals from outside the station bringing them back to the station, routing them so they can use them in the newscast. And I operate audio for our weekend evening newscast sometimes. I'm also a Webster alum, graduated in 2018. I was interning at KDHX. After my internship, I continued to stay there and volunteer one day throughout the week, running a podcast, editing spots and promos for air. I had a pretty good relationship with those guys there, so I kept doing that. And that led me to where I am now. Yeah, I was just applying for jobs in St. Louis that had anything to do with audio. Getting kind of desperate at the time. I wasn't finding anything. So Fox gave me a chance, and here I am now.
And what was your degree in? Was your degree in audio?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Audio production was my degree as well.
And so you work a lot of cameras and you're saying photographer as well. Did you learn that here at Webster, or did you have to learn that on the job?
I learned that all on the fly. I wanted to go into sound design and Foley production.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the direction I wanted to go. That's what Webster led me to. So I'm kind of doing that in a sense. Video and audio go hand in hand, but I'm more on the video side now. But
you also saw the opportunity and rose to the challenge with all the other stuff. That's great.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem.
Tony Black.
Hi, I'm a New York-based music record producer, recording engineer, and mixer. I've been in the industry, music business industry, since probably like 1992 officially as a professional. I made my way through the entire like New York recording scene through the 90s and 2000s. As part of the burgeoning hip hop scene through the 90s, not knowing that it was going to be something important, to be honest with you. Continued through that, doing several things regarding like having my own production company and running my own production out of my own personal studio. Also still working in various studios around the country. I'm also a photographer, graphic design guy, and a brand consultant. I've done several crazy things of helping brands develop and launching. And now I'm getting into the indie label thing where I'm actually producing a new project that's being uploaded on a regular basis to Spotify and all the streaming locations and platforms, and going from there. And I made it out to St. Louis because of the pandemic. I got invited out by Carl Napa himself, and we've known each other for years, going back to the recording days in New York. And that's what brought me here today.
Thank you, Tony. What's interesting is you can see there's three different, I wouldn't say occupations, but different careers in audio right now, but it's all still audio. It's still doing the same thing. Garrison, you're still putting together a system, but having to know how it's going to translate. Is most of your systems that you're doing right now in a concert level, or?
We do a variety of systems, anyway, from huddle rooms, conference rooms, all the way up to stadiums and sports arenas, houses of worship, bars, restaurants, corporate. I did a retirement home in Florida, an auditorium there in Florida in the beginning of the year, nuclear power plant, insurance company, just a wide variety of AV needs. Right now, we've had a flux of video conferencing systems that we've been doing. Since obviously with the pandemic, doing video conferencing has been a priority or a primary way of communicating. We've had more transition of companies wanting their own video conferencing systems or upgrading what they currently have for that. But yeah, it ranges from that. We do venues too. I was at the Dome about 3 weeks ago doing preventive maintenance there. And it is venues too, like the venues in the casinos. We do some of those too. So it's just a wide variety of systems still involving audio.
Yeah, and when you say involving audio, I mean, you're still using what you learned in school, but also obviously on the job, not just telling them what kind of speakers to buy or how to integrate it, but also Are you tuning the systems or running the sound at all? Anything like that?
Not so much hands-on mixing anymore. Those are kind of like side gigs within a new system, but mostly DSP programming, referring to digital signal processing, where it's basically a black magic box that does all the processing, but it does involve audio theory, being able to have good gain structure, signal processing in a way. And then when going on a site, it does involve doing system tuning for the speakers,
Sure.
feedback reduction for live reinforcement systems, and then just an overall mix. Basically, we try to eliminate as much user error as possible, so as much automation. So in some systems, I've got one room specifically, it was about 120 different mic channels or so, and the users didn't have any control over it. So I had to automate all that based on what the room was doing, how it was being used, who was using what microphone, if there was a priority area. So it involves what I learned in school, but then taking up another level for different systems and applications.
And then what kind of interaction with the client do you have?
Everything.
So how important is that? I guess that's what I'm kind of leading.
Yeah, that is very important. I am going on site, usually one of the last people that the client sees whenever the system is installed. So with that, I leave the last impression of them with our company. If everything's going well, everything's great, I'm making sure that they're happy with the system, do a little bit of training with them usually. And then in other situations where maybe things aren't going great, or I'm called in to troubleshoot, they're not in the best mood. So it is a little bit outside of just technical audio. It is the little bit of clientele working with them just in a way of making them feel supported, cared for in that way, and a valued customer. So it's a lot of client interaction. And I really like that aspect of it.
Sure. But you're not doing the sales aspect. You're just coming in after the salesperson kind of laid the deal work, groundwork.
The joke is engineers do everything, but mostly not sales. A little bit of sales in the beginning if it's a walkthrough of a system where maybe the salesman needs a little bit of assistance as far as what exactly to do. I'd go with them to the site, walk through with them, and kind of recommend what I think would be best for the certain site or application. But as far as actual sales go, not so much on that side. It's more of assistance when needed, but not a full-on, I'm not a salesman in that way.
But you're still interacting with the client on a daily basis during the installation and post-installation as well.
Yes, we do follow-up service programs where after a system is sold, if they would request a yearly maintenance for the dome, for instance, or like Chaffetz Arena, I go on site, work with scheduling with them. If there's any issues that are going on, they tell me that. I'd be able to address those, or anything they have future concerns or any upgrades they want. So it is a lot of, client interaction in that way too.
Now, Tony, same type of question with you as far as being a record producer or even a mixer. Because I know the answers to a lot of these questions because you do work remotely a lot, right? You get a lot of stuff that people send you to mix. And how's that interaction going compared to when we started almost, from the Hit Factory days when we had a new client every day?
Right. I think I've been working remote technically in some sort of way, shape, or form since 2008. When I had a studio in my house in New Jersey, and I've found that right around that time, things started happening where I was able to just download files or have them sent to me and work on them and send them back via the internet. I mean, before the MP3 became a really easily emailable thing, it was impossible. You had to sort of be in person or mail things or have them couriered. So the transition from me to remote hasn't really been so drastic because I've gotten on board with that very early, and now it's almost 100% even prior to the pandemic. Oddly enough, I had done one session in person with a band the day before everything got locked down. And prior to that, it had been a very long time. Short of obviously certain things that you have to record in person with an artist, a great amount of stuff is now just uploaded, and you just do all your communication via not even Zoom calls, just phone calls, talking about where the mix is at or where the production is at, and then sending revisions back and forth.
But what about when you were first starting in your career in the studio? How important was client interaction, whether it be an artist or a record person, manager?
Yeah, I don't think that's changed. I think sales is sales, and you're almost. I would almost not disagree with what Garrison was saying, but I think that anytime you're interacting with the client, that's sales. Whether it's not closing the deal, but you're part of the deal, and you always have to be thinking about what the client wants, whether they're happy, and you're solving problems. You might not be getting the commission, so to speak, but you're part of the sale, and you're part of keeping the sale.
I mean, he really is.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything involved with, aside from the person not being in the room, nothing's changed. I still have to interact with the client or the artist in trying to feel out their visions, make them happy, make them, find a way to get them satisfied with the product that they have, and moving on from there. But sadly, the interaction of a whole bunch of people being in a room and is gone. But I think all of that translates. I think you could easily go backwards and work with people in a room if you're used to this. And I think this is the new way, regardless of the pandemic. I think that everyone's going to be working remote. I mean, I was already to the point where I was happy enough going to a hotel and mixing a record with headphones.
Yeah, I think it can be said that that our industry, the recording side of things, changed way before the pandemic. That as soon as a personal computer came on the screen with a decent Pro Tools and an operating system that could handle multiple tracks, people were working remotely and
the bandwidth. I mean, without the bandwidth, we couldn't send things as rapidly back and forth. Everyone's so used to just dropping gigabytes into a folder. I mean, you couldn't even fit a gigabyte on a hard drive this big when they first, in 2000.
Yeah, when we first started, I remember the hard drive my first hard drive was just ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, and huge in size.
Now, Jerome, same type of a question. I know it's gonna be a little different. Being on the truck, being in the station doing audio, you don't really have like a client that you're dealing with other than your peers, right? So you're dealing with the on-air talent probably. And how is it like dealing with in your line of work? Is that almost, do they calling the shots? Kind of walk us through a little of how that stuff works, because I'm kind of clueless when it comes to any of that stuff.
Like
Super interesting.
Dealing with the pandemic, or just in general?
In general, just before we get into a little bit about pandemic's gonna change everything.
So when whoever you're working with for that day, they'll basically tell you like, okay, this is our story. We're gonna go here. We're gonna shoot this. We're gonna interview this person. So they're kind of guiding you and telling you what they want. You're basically fulfilling whatever they want and bringing it to life in a sense. So yesterday we went to the St. Charles Arena, the family arena down in St. Charles. It was a story about like some Christmas lights they're doing, but she had coordinated an interview about 30 minutes after I got in, so I had to kind of rush and get my gear together. We interviewed the guy. He sent us a file video of lights that they had already shot, so I kind of just took that and shot a couple things on my own, and she had wrote the piece up, and we're working in a live truck together, by the way, and she wrote the piece up. She sent me her script. I basically cut and edited everything she wanted, put it together, and we got it in for 9:00. So I'm trying to.
Now, do you work with the same talent all the time?
No, it's different. So it's different people, different personalities every day.
That's so, but are you also trying to make an impression that they'll ask for you the next time they're going out, right?
Absolutely. I just try to make sure everybody's satisfied with their work. Like you said, it's not sales, but they have to be satisfied. It's their face attached to it. It's
You
not
selling
mine.
yourself?
Yeah, and it's going on air, so who knows who's viewing it? So we have standards to live up to, obviously. So it's just communicating with them and making sure that you're executing exactly what they want.
Yeah. And I firmly believe that when people buy into, whether it's audio or whether it's, a system or, doing a TV show or a mix, that they're buying the person as much as they are buying the product. Like they want to have that interaction with somebody. We're selling ourselves on a daily basis about not only our talent, but, who we are as people. And especially where I come from, hanging in a recording studio for 12 hours, recording drums or a guitar. If I'm not fun to be around, and it's not a fun time. And I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but one of us is on the call that is not fun to be around in a recording studio. No, I'm just kidding with Tony Black. A funny story.
I was thinking that.
And a funny story is when we were in New York, I would always cover for Tony if he needed like a day off or an afternoon or something. And I'd always play it like completely straight with his clients. Like I wouldn't show them how good I was because he was my friend. I didn't want to steal the gig. And the thing I noticed about Tony is his clients absolutely adored him. And I'm talking like, when I say clients, we throw that word around pretty loosely, but I'm talking like Notorious B.I.G. I'm talking Cameron. I'm talking, some of the biggest artists that me and him worked in our career. They love this guy. And it was because Tony made the session run smoothly. Like the whole place could be on fire and he would just be totally comfortable and be like, yeah, you just do this. And I'm sure the two of you guys have that same ability. And if you didn't, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in right now and be able to work. And I think that's important for our students to learn and is to understand that, sometimes you want to have everything kind of lined up and ready to go. But when all hell breaks loose, you have to be able to just be cool and be like, yeah, I got this. Like, don't worry about it. Yeah, you want to move all the speakers from this side to that side tomorrow? We got that. It's easy. Meanwhile, inside, like, how am I going to do that? Wait, the truck has to go 20 miles right now? Okay, we got it. And I guess that's the kind of attitude that we have to have. Because people buy into that. They want us to do that stuff. They want to have that person that they can call in and that they can trust to come in and do the job properly, efficiently, and at a really, really high level. Now, all that said, how has everything changed? I know Tony mentioned that with the pandemic, it really hasn't affected him as much because his business was already lined up, kind of heading in that direction. But with the other two, like, how much has it affected you? I mean, Jerome, you're on the truck with another person. Like, I mean, are we doing like masks? Are we doing social distancing? And then you're out in the public. Has it hampered what you're doing? Is it the same?
Yeah, it's 50-50. It's the same because I'm still in the field. I'm still interviewing people. I'm still going to places, but we're wearing the masks. I carry a boom pole with me so I can put the mic on it and make sure I'm 6 feet apart from whoever we're interviewing. Constantly sanitizing the mics, wiping them down. For a while, I hate to say it, but we actually had some people who had gotten the virus and they'd have to like go and work from home, and they still have to put a piece together for that night. So they may email you all of their files, their script, and you haven't even seen them the whole time. But you still have to like take all of the elements and put it together and get it on air at a certain time. So, but again, you're constantly communicating with that person via phone or whatever, just to make sure that you understand exactly what they're trying to do and that you're executing it.
So you work on some heavy duty deadlines then. What time is your deadline? 9 o'clock?
So say my shift starts at 4. A lot of times, if there's no like breaking news that's urgent, probably at 9 o'clock, I'm turning a piece over. And like I said, that's shooting, editing, tracking, everything. So some pretty tight deadlines.
Good pressure too.
Yeah, I like it.
And Garrison, how has your position changed now with the pandemic?
So with my job, it's about, I'd say over 50% of site work usually, not regarding pandemic. So the first 3 to 4 weeks in March, when we went into lockdown, work from home pretty much only. That involved a lot of product training on new products or existing products to upgrade. And then after the fourth week or so, slowly getting back to site, obviously requiring masks. At that point, a lot of the St. Louis businesses that we work with had already evacuated or had minimal staff. So social distancing wasn't as big of a deal because everybody was pretty much gone at that point. And then adhering towards social distancing standards, I had to work at the St. Louis County Emergency Operations Center for about 3 weeks, getting their system ready to video conference and mask there all the time. But as far as the actual basics of what I'm doing on site, that hasn't really changed. It's more of, since buildings are empty, things that they had planned for future in the year, later in the year, like at this point, got moved to mid-year or so because it is empty. So it was a lot easier to work with logistics. For instance, like the dome, again, we do yearly maintenance mid to late year or so, and it would be around this time. We did it mid-year because it was empty and there weren't any dates there. Same thing with the venues. So site work, the basics hasn't really changed, but more of the logistics have changed with that. And then we do new construction sites too for new buildings. Those are a little bit more relaxed because it is outside with construction workers, so there is more space and not being inside. But still, when it comes inside, wearing masks, keeping distancing, but nothing out of the ordinary of what you see out in public right now.
Gotcha. And I'm sure your travel kind of was a little curtailed, especially if you're traveling to Florida and things like that. And around.
Yeah. The first time to Florida for that job was January. So that was when it hadn't hit us here in the United States that hard yet, but it was still there. So it was still a question. And then I went back in May or June again, and everybody was like, "You're pretty brave to do that." And I'm like, well, if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it, but not too big a deal. I'm not saying that it would be horrible to get it. I think in my age bracket, it's probably the best age bracket to get it, or the youngest that I think would be able to fend it off easier. But it did stop some of the national traveling. But within the St. Louis area, which is 90% of where I go as far as driving goes, it didn't really slow that down after the first initial month. Then it picked up slowly after that.
Gotcha. Let's change gears just a tiny little bit, and let's talk about some of the challenges and some of the benefits in the industry. Like what kind of benefits do you get from working in this industry? And then what are some of the bigger challenges that maybe a student could help prepare themselves for a job in the audio industry? Anybody want to start with that one? Tony.
I'll give you some challenges in the audio industry. That's basically. I think that there's a certain amount of challenges in that it's just not always going to be about audio. If I could give any sort of advice, it's you got to kind of have to be open to the idea that there are going to be new things coming at you that you didn't expect, that you may have to learn, while there might be not be an audio job for that day. So if that involved getting, not so much being a jack of all trades, but having more than one skill is huge. Someone asked me in the chat if my photography was a side hustle, and my answer is it's all a side hustle. So like, if you've taken on something that is at least that you developed a certain amount of skill at, it'll eventually, in my opinion, come in handy. It'll find its way to come in handy. So you could, I don't know what that noise was, but audio is a challenge because I would say it would just be the same for video. There isn't always video to work on, and there isn't always audio to work on. So if you have other skills that go along with those that you can tie together to fill in the blank spots, as some people would like to say, that wouldn't hurt. And be open to doing all the things: editing, mixing, archiving. There's so many different areas that you could get into to keep yourself working. I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, everything kind of is a side hustle, especially if you just want to be an audio engineer at a big studio. It's really, really, really pigeonholed at this particular time.
Yeah, I mean, on the recording music tip, yes. I mean, that would also be like pigeonholing yourself and saying you're only going to work on one specific type of music, and that could be problematic in that, maybe for a few weeks out of the year you don't have any Americana to work on, and that's all you want to work on. But if you had the skills to at least handle a little bit of jazz, you could fill in the blanks and maybe have some money for Christmas presents, something like that.
Any benefits working in the industry?
Any benefits to working in the music industry or the
Yeah,
audio
sure.
industry?
Yeah.
And listen, if you love audio and you love working with people and you love the interaction of creating new things, because technically, unless you're working on something that's old, you're always seeing something new come down the pipe. So whether it's a news story or in the case of like Garrison doing new installations, I mean, there's always something new. It's exciting stuff. I think that's probably why we got into this area of the arts or media, because we're not into developing new cinder blocks, or selling lumber,
Yeah.
which I guess a board is a board, right?
Anyone else want to take a stab at that question?
Sure. Oh,
Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off again.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like what Tony was saying, the more you can do, the better these days. I remember like when I was taking Foley classes, sound recording classes. My professor was telling me, while you're on a set, learn how to do some lighting, learn how to do some other things, learn how to do grip. The more you can do, the better. The way the industry is now, people are condensing a lot of jobs. Like with my job years ago, me being an engineer and a truck op, I would never touch a camera, but these days they're merging maybe 3 or 4 roles into one. So I say it's interesting because like I said, the more you can do, the better. You're marketable. You can do multiple things. You're not just limiting or restricting yourself to one role. That's just the way the industry is going these days. Who knows? In my down the line in my field of work, they may condense it even more and expect more of me. So just always be open-minded, be flexible, be willing to learn, and stay open-minded. I think with that type of mindset, you can go as far as you want to in audio.
You gonna add something?
I want to jump in, but Duran, I'm pretty sure I've heard that sometimes reporters literally are driving themselves to a scene and filming themselves.
Absolutely.
Setting up a camera on a tripod and actually reporting to and they're the only one there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a reporter that probably never thought in their wildest dreams they were going to have to set up a camera, right?
Yeah. You have a lot of them who shoot and edit their own stories. So down the line,
Right.
they may eliminate photographers and add a reporter doing it all themselves. We really don't know. But like I said, that's why I try to make myself as valuable as I can and do something that they can't do. So there'll always be work for me down the line.
Yep. True.
Yeah, for me, going off what he had said, when I was at Webster, I wanted to focus mostly live, and I didn't really care too much about studio. For me, studio was not as exciting as live, more because live, you got one time to do it. You'd either do it or you don't, and you learn from it. There's no undo button. And I like that pressure of having, like, you got to get it right or try to get it as right as possible. And then being as versatile as possible too. When I was at Webster, I did a lot of student films where I was on the on-site location, did a little bit of post-production too, and that opened up some opportunities for freelancing and side gigs. But when I got to TSI, I didn't realize how, one, the industry of install AVs, it's small but really big at the same time. And I focused mostly on audio because I really only knew that. But once getting into it and system design, I then learned about video, not video production and what Duran is doing, but more of video systems. For instance, like if you go to Buffalo Wild Wings and you see TVs all over the place, it's not just a bunch of cables that are hand split together. It's a whole system beyond that. And then control systems too for controlling all those. If you think of like casinos or sports bars, Westport Social or anything like that, where they've got a bunch of TVs, there needs to be a control system behind that. So as I'm getting further in my career at TSI, I'm learning more about these control systems. think of the Megatrons for like sports arenas, the big LED walls, learning about that too, and all the technology that goes behind that. And then all the cool little niche technologies that go into conference rooms too, to be able to create more versatility in production, not production as far as what he does, but production just in making a meeting productive. So having that versatility within your field really makes you more valuable of a employee, and also move skills around. For instance, the first 6 months of me at TSI, I was set on the site mostly because nobody else was available. And they said, let's have the new guy go check it out because, you know, everybody else is busy. I had to learn on the fly some video and control systems. And literally sometimes it was just unplugging and plugging a cable back in. You think HDMI is just a simple cable. It goes way beyond that. So learning all those little niche little things has definitely become a huge asset in pursuing and forwarding my career in all regards.
Sure.
And then you're talking about some of the benefits too. With my job, I get a lot of access to places that you normally wouldn't be able to. Like, I want to say 6th or 7th month at TSI, I was in the Blues locker room. We had done the system for the players and coaches for about 2 weeks. In the first few weeks of their season, I got to hang out with the players and coaches for a while, and that was pretty cool. Been a nuclear power plant, the different venues around the area, back of house and casinos, just a bunch of different places. That's been a benefit. And then the challenges have been working with clients, unreliable systems, old equipment. I want to use this thing from 1980, but I'm willing to spend $1 million on, you know, an upgraded system. Like, well, let's just spend an extra $100 from this thing to 1980, not use that kind of thing. So, and then just frustration. A lot of people don't know necessarily what they're doing in some AV installations.
Yeah.
So working with a not well thought out design or system too. Actually, it's more like, I forget which space movie it is, Apollo something, where the engineers on site got to figure out how to make the user or the astronauts work with some life-saving device based on, you know, paper clips, rubber bands, a vacuum or something like that. So sometimes I feel like I'm doing that in the audio video industry too, which is just, it's a great challenge, but definitely fun.
Let me ask you a question. If you could go back and tell yourself when you were first starting in the career, or even when you're in school, some good advice about something to help you right now, what kind of advice would you give your old self, your pre-self?
I'm the only old one here. Is that like some kind of shot? You know,
Older than me.
just kidding. I mean, these guys are, you know, they're young.
No, but what I mean is like something that, you know, you guys are all working in the field. You're all doing at a high level. Is there any advice you can give yourself, maybe to the students that are in school right now? You know, not feeling like, you know, study hard, make sure you do your homework, do your taxes. But, you know, is there something that, you know, piece of advice that, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Garrison.
So this may differ from you guys, but for me, I found that the IT world and the AV world are mixing, overlapping a lot these days, mostly because AV world is becoming a lot of equipment's becoming on the network or an isolated network. So the day before I started on TSI, I spent like 10 hours on YouTube learning about computer networking because I thought I'm gonna have to start this right away. I'm gonna need all these things, and maybe I embellished some of my knowledge in my interview a little bit, you know. So I felt like I need to know this, but that was a major key, and it still is a major key in what I do now. A lot of computer networking, and also on the digital side of audio. Like, I didn't have really any experience with Dante before starting at TSI. So I'm able to have some research and some knowledge in Dante and similar things such as Dante, or the digital side of the audio world too, and video world. So I know that's covered a little bit in the audio program, and I know it's changed. So I don't know exactly what's covered and what's not, but definitely knowing some terms at least to be able to start. And for me, a lot of online training videos for products and information too helped a lot. I think that was about the first 3 months of TSI, which is sitting down at the office learning a lot of that. And a lot of that's free resources. You just got to make an account. There's a lot of YouTube videos from the specific manufacturers too. So you could be learning all that at your home without a company and any special access, and free too.
Anybody else have some advice to give your old self,
Sure.
your young ones?
I would say value experiences over money. Like Garrison said, he was helping work on freelance projects on student films. I was kind of doing the same thing. That's what got me kind of into Foley and sound design, just having the guts to take on those projects. I didn't know what I was doing when I first got out there, but I wanted the experience. I wanted to learn what it was about and how to do those things. So value experiences over money. Those experiences will lead you to the money down the line. Just be willing to get your hands dirty, work, learn as much as possible, and make as many connections as you can. Those connections that you make with your colleagues or whoever, internships, that's gonna be what leads you to work or your connection, your whoever you're working with down the line. So if you maintain good relationships with your colleagues outside of school or whatever, they may contact you for work outside of school down the line. There's another thing I wanted to say, it kind of slipped my mind when it comes to me.
Well, I like how you said hard work, you know what I mean? And most people, you know, in this industry, rolling up your sleeves and putting in a good day's work is very important.
Yeah, and be a people person. Try to meet people's needs and see what they need. You know, if you're in a session and someone's critiquing the mix, you know, be open to tweak it. Don't say, well, no, it should be this way. You know, listen to people, try to and understand where they're coming from, and try to meet their needs. Being a people person is gonna take you far. Yeah, I had more. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I'm the New York guy, so I'm supposed to say like it's all about the money. Like everything's about the money. But you know, and I'm kidding in some ways, but it's, you know, and I agree with both of you guys on you know, everything you said. Actually, everything is about relationships. If I had to go back, then, you know, learn anything sooner, I probably would have. I probably would have wanted to learn sales a little bit better and understand that sales and the relationship, and not look at sales in a bad way that oh, I don't want to be a salesman, but to understand that everything is sort of a negotiation, whether it is someone listening to a mix and saying, you know, I want it to be this way or that way. There's a negotiation involved, and understanding that it's not personal. Even if the artist feels it's a personal thing, it's not really a personal thing. It's a negotiation of trying to come to some agreement on what the end product is. But on another tip, I would say that I find it to be important to like be a little bit well-rounded in life. Just guys who just get caught up in, and women who just get caught up into their industry and have no other outside interests, whether it's a dog or photography or yoga or travel. It's a way to those things are ways to make you a little bit more well-rounded, and in a way more interesting, and someone else who other people want to be around. Because in the media world and in the production world, there tends to be a lot of those sort of just like, this is all they know. Those type of people, they only know gear, they only know production, and you're around people all the time, and even if you're just interacting with them via the internet, it's always an interaction, and it's a little bit better to be around people that are interested in other things, including your life, including like who you are as a person or who the client is as a person. It's not always about them just being a client. That's
And almost the work-life balance as well.
A work-life balance is really tough in the production world. That's a big battle.
I don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
That's
I come from Webster and I go to my studio and then I sneak in the house by around 1 o'clock in the morning.
right. So work balance is tough because you're making a lot of sacrifices in production, and you're asking other people in your life to make those same sacrifices in a lot of ways, and you have to learn that sales negotiation of, what's working for them, what's working for you, and then what's working for your clients. It's all about sales.
Yeah, and I know in the early days, the studio, we didn't have a lot of work-life balance because there was always a deadline. You had to be in a recording studio to mix a record, so it had to be done before you finished. So you're always like, you had to leave. And I'm sure Jerome, with your 9 o'clock deadline to get on air, or maybe you can push it back a tiny little bit, like you can't stop and go to dinner. If you had a friend's birthday party, you're not going. And
Right.
I'm sure the news doesn't stop because it's Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day or a holiday or, nighttime. So juggling that must be really tough.
It is.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't get to spend as much time with friends and family as I used to. I'm just not as available as I used to be, but I still find that balance for myself.
Good.
Every chance I get on my off days, I try to hang out with friends and family and kind of detach from work. Detaching is just as good, it's just as healthy as doing the work. You have to step away from things sometimes and be a human being outside of whatever it is you do, because it's so easy to just get so wrapped up in your work, and that's all you see and that's all you're used to. You know what I mean? So being able to detach and take that time for yourself is healthy and necessary.
Sure.
Just as important as it is putting the work in. So.
And Garrison, I'm sure the same thing holds for you if you're on a job installing a system somewhere remotely. You're on, 3-4 weeks, a month. That's got to be rough living out of a hotel. I mean, I've did that for years, traveling on the road, making records, but a lot of people don't understand, you just work.
Yeah, it's fortunately for me, on the road, as far as like not within the St. Louis area, maybe about a week and a half to 2 weeks a year so far. So mostly it's just driving with the area. But yeah, I was in Jeff City last week, Thursday, and it was a 14-hour day, I think, with travel or something like that. Obviously, I'm not going to have any plans coming back because I'm getting back real late. But sometimes, and every once in a while, when an emergency situation comes up for a system, for a big client, drop whatever you're doing, weekend, not weekend, whatever, and go. I'm usually not clued in on those contracts until like I get the call. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I have to be there. And so sometimes I am, but yeah, same thing. Fortunately for me, they do at TSI most of the time stick to 40 hours a week. So I am fortunate in that way to stay there. And then if something's required for 40 hours, then it's usually approval process or something like that. So out different from the production industry where it's you just got to get stuff done. It's more of like a 40-hour. I mean, every once in a while 45, and then very little 50-ish a week or so. So I'm very thankful in that way as far as my job goes.
Yeah, but when you have to, you just roll up your sleeves and do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. For the Emergency Operations Center at St. Louis County, I mean, that was very important of a system to get that up and going and running because the whole county depended on them getting all their stuff together. So that was you got to stay here. And thankfully, they fed me lunch and dinner while I was there, and exactly what everybody is saying, client relationship. I was real nice to everybody, trying to do my best job, and they were like, have free food. I'm like, definitely. Smoothie King all day? Yeah, I'll take that. But yeah, you just got to get it done sometimes.
In the chat, Brad asked a good question about what kind of internships exist during the pandemic for audio students who aren't looking for studio work. I find that to be a question I get a lot on campus and I know Jerome said about KDHX, they do have a great internship program. I don't know if they're running it during the pandemic. I'm sure they are. Andy over there does a great job with all the interns. But do you guys know of anything out there as well for people who maybe want to follow in your path and not get a job at one of the local studios or production companies?
For TSI, we did try doing an internship program last year, 2 years ago or something like that. It kind of worked, but Without the knowledge of the products, it is kind of hard to get interns on site to work. It's a lot more shadowing than anything else. But currently in the pandemic, I'm not too knowledgeable on what is out there at this time.
Got you. Yeah, I just got a note from Trizette about KDX is holding off on all interns until the fall because of the pandemic. I know some of the local studios actually closed down too. So right now it's rough. I mean, let's be honest, you know, we got a global pandemic going on. But there's always ways to kind of learn. I think what Garrison said about, you know, opening up an account or going on YouTube and using this time to maybe hone up on something that you don't know much about. Maybe if Dante isn't your thing and you know you want to go into this world, you know, jump on that, you know, learn about networking. I mean, I think almost every digital mixer right now, you know, you're joining a network, especially on a front of house session, right? I mean, it's a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable. I mean, it's unbelievable that you don't have to go around with, you know, 300 feet of copper wire anymore to get into the front of house anymore. It's amazing, like what is actually going on in our industry as far as how things are changing.
Yeah, to add to that too, a lot of the technology, I think sound and communications magazines or whatever it is, where you can look at free subscriptions online or small interviews. In my free time, I used to look up like front of house engineer interviews, like Dave Rat, I believe. Yeah, like just some of his stuff, just to get an idea of what's going on in the industry. So definitely, like you said, I support that too.
Yeah. And like you said, there's some great organizations out there. There's some great free magazines that being a student and also an audio professional, whether it's Pro Sound News, what's the other one when I get Tape Op, and then there was Live Systems Integration. I think there's another one. There's a lot of specific magazines for very specific things out there, you know. We also just got a really nice question in from Andrew about, are there any opportunities for video game, movie sound design in St. Louis? That's a really good question. I don't know of many in that world because I'm more in the studio, but do you guys know of any?
I know a professor there, Adam Frick. He was really good with that. I think he was beginning to offer internships a bit after I graduated. So Adam Frick may be a good guy to reach out to. I don't know if he's still at Webster. I would think so. But he did a bunch of like Foley and sound design stuff. I think he runs a company called Hug Monster Sound. Also, off top of my head, I could think of some now. This is kind of like in my realm, but I think Real STL TV offers internships. I think they're still doing things. I've seen some of their people out when I'm out. So Real STL TV. In my department, we don't have internships. I think it's weird. Maybe I should talk to someone and inquire about that.
Yeah.
I know we have internships in the web department, but that's not really involving audio. It could be a foot in the door. Maybe check out some of the other news stations, maybe Channel 4, Channel 5. If something else comes to mind, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, also remember all of our Webster students, we have probably one of the best people on staff, with Trizette being here. If everybody knows where her office is, it's across from the radio station. She's the third office all the way to the left. She knows about everybody in the industry, and you can set up an appointment with her and talk about getting ready for an internship, or even if you want to get into some kind of extra knowledge right now. I mean, she's highly knowledgeable with everybody in town and what they're doing and who's working and who's not, or who's offering internships, I should say, especially right now in the world we're living in.
I've got a friend that when I was at Webster that did sound design. He was in the music department, and he did get I don't know if it was a full job or internship exactly, but he did do some sound design for a local video game company. I think they were doing more phone apps and phone games at that point, but they did have some great projects, but that was 2016 or so. So I have no idea the name and if they're still around, but at least I know there was one company here locally that did do.
And I think it's also interesting to remember that, just like you said, it was a phone app or something like that. Like, audio is everywhere. You know, a lot of times we think, oh, it's got to be in this beautiful recording studio or in front of this, you know, concert of 1,000 people. But, you know, all these churches here, there's audio going on every weekend. There's audio going on in every business. I mean, how many businesses have you put in, Garrison, where you're putting in some kind of call center, not a call center, but a video something, or there's all audio that goes along with that. And it's maybe you want to be in the recording studio, but doing other stuff audio related doesn't hurt, I should say. And you're still thinking of audio instead of working as a moving furniture. No one wants to do that. It'd be fun to at least stay in the audio world. And then, as things change, maybe you get more into production, or maybe you get more into sound design, or maybe you find a different path. Like, I was a musician when I first started. I played in the jazz band, and I went to a recording studio one night, and I walked into the control room, and that was it for me. I was done. That's what I wanted to follow, and I just followed that path till I ended up, kind of doing what I did.
Yeah, I'll add in that too, that until I started this job, I didn't realize how many places required audio and video. And you think of it as a background, like for instance, the Webster classrooms, you're not really thinking about when you go into those and using the projector, the speaker system, that somebody had thought about putting that together and designing that. Conference rooms. I just did a paging system in North County at North Technical, where it was 145 speaker zones or so each classroom. You call in to do a page emergency system. I was at an aluminum smelting plant doing an emergency notification system there. So it's a lot, like you were saying, there's a lot of places, locations, different jobs that you don't think of audio. And some places that are big enough to, for instance, like Ameren Electricity is one of our clients, and so is Charter Spectrum. They have dedicated people on their staff that just do AV. Now, that will keep you working a lot, because for Ameren, they have a lot of locations around town. So you're gonna be dedicated to that company to be able to provide assistance, knowledge, and maybe even some guidance. So that's a route and a path I hadn't really thought about until starting this job.
Yeah, the same thing with Boeing. Boeing has an in-house AV department for all of their needs, and I know they do big what do you call conferences and stuff up there in their little section of town. I know a question just came in for Tony Black. I don't know if he answered it on the chat or not about his equipment. Tony, would you like to elaborate on that, just so anybody?
Yeah, I guess someone, I don't know how to pronounce the first name, Dorima King, asked me what type of equipment I use in my home studio. It's interesting, the home studio thing. I've thought about that a lot lately. Is that I don't know that we can call them home studios anymore. And there's even like bedroom music and stuff. Like, when you get to the point where everyone's working at home, I mean, they're just studios, and everybody is kind of working at home and working in bedrooms and dining rooms and hotel rooms and things like that. But I use Avid Pro Tools, Reason, Logic. Now I'm learning Studio One. I'm learning new software during the pandemic quite a bit. Studio One, how to integrate Splice, how to deal with the streaming platforms and experimenting with levels and uploading and things like that. I use a UA audio interface, but I'm familiar and comfortable with a Focusrite interface, Avid interfaces, and things like that. I'm not really using all that many microphones right now because I'm not recording anybody, but all the usual flavors. And everything's in a computer. I use a pair of speakers to listen once in a while, but I do mix a lot in headphones, and have been doing that for about 3 or 4 years now. Currently, I would say 75% of the time I'm in headphones. So I think that could answer most of what.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting to hear, because I have a lot of students and that I teach that complain that they only have headphones to listen to, and I always tell them about you, and that you work predominantly in headphones. I don't. I work.
Andrew Sheps is 100% in headphones. Another industry guy. I think it used to be frowned upon. I mean, years ago, headphones were really bad, and now headphones are quite advanced compared to, I mean, even 1995, they They were just not known to be good unless you were an audiophile. And those people only listen to like classical music in headphones or jazz.
Yeah.
But now headphones are everywhere. And obviously, like with buds, that's how people listen to music. I think even when they're in their cars, they don't listen to their car stereos anymore. They still have their earbuds in. And if they are listening to music at all, that's where it's coming from, or that's how it's getting to them. So if you can get anything you can get to work for you is the way to deliver
Do you have
the
a
job.
pair of headphones that you like?
I use the
over-
even audio headphones. I use the old Sony standbys, the 7506s, which are kind of everywhere. You can get them at Guitar Center for $100, I think.
99.
And I like a few other things here and there, but the even audio ones are really cool. They're Bluetooth, and that's kind of fun because you can work and work in headphones without a cable sticking into somewhere. So you can kind of like walk around the room listening to things while you're getting a feel for the levels. You can, I mean, you really think about it, you can't go get a sandwich and still be listening to a mix in a recording studio. You have to be sitting in that one spot in between two speakers to listen.
I might have to disagree. I like to walk out of my studio and get a sandwich in the kitchen and hear it through the door and hear a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't sell to people on the other side of the door. I'm just kidding. But I want to like, just take, you want to work fat. If you want to get efficient, you can listen all the time. You can also, what's kind of cool is unless you're in the recording studio, you're not going to be listening to those speakers all the time. But if you have a pair of headphones that you like, you can walk around town listening to music and hang out at a park,
And learn how
at a farmer's market or something like
Yeah.
and still be listening to your monitors and getting more familiar with your environment. So you never leave the studio, which is like a nightmare.
I like to take my noise with me when I go to the farmer's market.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And a power amp.
Tamara asked a good question. How long did it take to get job placement after school, and how did you go about getting them? I know we heard about Garrison, where his friend was telling him for like 6 months, do it. But
I got a little bit of a funny thing about that. So started on a Tuesday, and basically I didn't have a desk, so I just sat next to him the whole time. And then on Thursday or Friday, he told me he's going to Chicago for the weekend. I'm like, okay, when are you gonna come back? He's like, well, I'm not really. I'm like, what do you mean you're not coming back? He's like, well, the reason I really wanted to push you to apply because my fiance got a job in Chicago and I'm going there and you're replacing me. I'm like, oh, so that's why for 6 months you've really been pushing me to apply for this job so you'd have a replacement. But it worked out for both of us. So that was kind of the situation on that.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. A lot of times in this industry, someone opens a door for you, right? They call it, a lucky break or, good fortune or whatever. But the truth is that door might be open, but it's up to you to make sure it stays open. I'm sure that your friend got you the interview or pushed you to do it, but you're the one that kept the job, made sure that you did a hard day's work, you were trustworthy, that you could get the job done. And I think a lot of people overlook that. They just look at he helped him get a job. Like I recently was helping a student to get an internship, and that's the easy part. I just made a phone call. I made a text to a friend of mine. But the truth is, it's up to that student to now perform and represent not only himself, but, me as well. And one of my first opportunities was the job I got in New York City, working at the Hit Factory. And a friend of mine who was a rock star got me the interview. And he just got me in the door. It was up to me to make sure that not only did I stay in the door, but I excelled and worked up higher than Tony Black as far as ranking and the amount of sessions that we did. Always got to throw it in. Jerome, what about you? How about as far as your career path to the TV station, to Fox 2? Like, how did you get that job?
So it took me 6 months to get a job after graduating. My plan was to move to Atlanta after graduating. Like kind of like Tony, I do some recording and production on the side too. So it wasn't just solely sound design, production and recording and mixing on the side. That's what got me into audio in the first place. My love for music. But yeah, 6 months out of school, I wasn't finding anything. I was just applying for anything that said audio. Like you said, there's audio everywhere. Anything that had audio related to it, I was applying for it. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. I didn't think they were going to give me an interview, to be honest. So that goes to another point of don't let you not having the qualifications for something intimidate you into not applying. Whenever a job hires you, they have to train you. You know, so you don't feel like you have to know everything. Put yourself out there. And like I said, they wanted me to be a cameraman. I saw myself as an audio guy. So I'm thinking I'm going to be behind the board 5 days a week. Oh, I can run audio. I can, mic people up and whatever. But it ended up being a whole different ball game. They needed a nighttime photographer. So I had to step into that role and put those shoes on and be pretty good at it pretty fast. So does that kind of answer what?
Yep, absolutely.
Man.
I have another question. What about building a professional network? I know we're kind of like getting towards the end, but how does one build a network? How does one keep all of that? I'm not talking about like friends and family thing. I'm talking more about your industry friends and building more, clientele or even just people in the industry to network with and grow amongst yourselves.
Take
You guys
advantage.
using LinkedIn? You guys using Facebook? You guys using just talking to folks?
Use all of the social media these days. Everything's social media driven anyway. I mean, to be honest, that's what got me to participate in this panel. Take advantage of everything. Every connection you make, treat it like it's your last one. Take advantage of it. Make sure you have a good established rapport with that person. Have a good connection. Continue talking to those people, reaching out to them via social media, because down the line they may think about you when a project comes up. That's what I have for now.
Yeah, I could add on to that. That everyone that you meet, you're probably going to go through some sort of an evaluation when you meet them. Is there something in this for me? Are they talented? Is there something in it for me or whatever? And a million times it's happened to me where the last person in the world that I would have expected to have been a great part of a network turned out to be that person. Even if it was an artist who in the beginning I would think, oh, well, this artist is okay. But, maintain and treat everyone all the same. It can surprise you who comes back around in your life multiple times. And they evolve as you're evolving, and they maybe weren't super sharp when you met them, but all of a sudden they found their niche and took off. And depending on how your relationship went with them in the beginning, it might affect whether or not you reconnect, and that's how your network does grow. Always by relationships, and it goes all the way back to the very first person you meet in any environment. I'm still working right now. I mix for a producer that I met who worked at a guitar shop over 30 years ago that I used to go to. I used to go in the guitar shop and talk to this guy about guitars, and he was a complete maniac. I don't even know that I really liked him. And
wait, then or now?
Then, and he went on. We went our separate ways. Over the course of 10 years, I heard like, oh yeah, Mark's a musician, and he's doing this and that. He's writing, and I was in New York and still was not in touch with him. And I think we reconnected 20 years after that guitar shop relationship, where he contacted me one day and said like, hey, I heard you're back in New Jersey and you're like mixing records out of your house, and can I come by? And now I've been mixing for him for like 12 years. He's still a lunatic, but we maintained some sort of connection going all the way back to then and to now. Same with like Carl Napa kind of thing. When I first met him, I thought, no way. Boston, Red Sox, all those things.
That's right. I was a Red Sox fan before I switched.
Yeah,
Cardinals.
delete, and then he's still around.
But that is true. Like our people we meet along the way, you know, might not be in the role that could hire you for a position or a job or, you know, get you a gig. But as we all grow together in the industry, you know, I tell a lot of our students here that, you know, look around the room, the person sitting next to you might be a long-term friend and coworker. Like me and Tony have been working together since the 90s, like early.
Yeah,
90s.
we would have never known. We would have never known that we would still know each other now, and that I would be in St. Louis or
Yeah, never,
anything along those. And that's not. This isn't even a business scenario, but like I even had people who were receptionists at record labels who have now gone on to become presidents of record labels. And in no way, shape, or form could I have predicted that when I first started interacting with that person. Like, oh, yeah, no, this sounds like a future label president. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. But it does happen. And also artists that you think can't possibly make it go on to become like humongous stars. I've said in some other YouTube thing that I've done, like you want to be there when that person kind of finds their moment, rather than doing the old my famous thing that Carl loves. You want to cut them out so soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had joined a few young adult groups beginning of last year, and just normal conversation with getting to know everybody. One guy has his own AV production company, and in the beginning, we nerded out pretty much, but then at the end of last year, early this year or so, he had like double booked himself for a few gigs. So I took over in one of them, and the whole time he was texting me because that's the first time I worked on one of his gigs, and he wasn't there. He was like, "Is everything okay?" Okay. I was like, I got it. So, I got his trust after that. And then he made a few videos for some churches on like how to get streaming systems up and going. They contacted him, the churches, and said, "Hey, we really like your content. Can you help us out?" He didn't have any audio or too much experience in install, so he brought me on as audio guy, and we did a remote consulting job for a church in Texas, where we designed the system. We configured it all here, set the equipment there, gave him instruction over Zoom of how to install, and I set my own rate and basically worked for him under his company as a consultant, and never thought that would have happened in meeting somebody in a young adult group, just hang out with other young adults. And from that, it's led to many opportunities with him. So just sharing your passion for your job too.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about earlier, I think that'll go through to other people, and you'll be able to capture that, and they'll be able to see that. So when it does come to they need a gig or a skill or something like that, they'll have you first in mind. And that's led to a lot for me.
We just got a thing in the chat, or the question and answer, I should say, not really the chat, but I guess it's the same thing. And it's a really good one. It's from Eli. What kind of emerging technology or tools in the industry should we keep an eye on and invest our time in learning? I think we're at a pretty interesting point where things are changing very, very, very rapidly. And what would you guys suggest that you're seeing kind of, not so much what's in front of our face right now, but maybe that's emerging and that's kind of coming along down the road in a little bit?
For me in the install world, and this relates to probably drone a little bit too, we're seeing some places that do mixing where the producer is actually not in the same room or even same state. Like for instance, for hockey, they do all their production stuff in Canada, and everything that's set locally, I believe, is set to Canada to go from there. So being able to learn that technology of remote working in a way, it's a wide and huge variety right now, but just having an idea of maybe some terms, or not necessarily how to work or operate or troubleshoot, but just an idea of what they're talking about. In my world, we have manufacturer reps come to us all the time with new products. So I'm constantly getting new information in that way. And it's surprising of how much there is out there and how much being expanded, even within our manufacturer, progressing to new heights in different conferencing and audio and video technologies. So I think the cool thing that we're seeing is augmented reality meetings where they may have a projected system. We're even seeing some ideas for holograms where people are being scanned and they're having conferencing like you would see in Star Trek or Star Wars, where they're literally talking to a hologram. We're seeing that possibly come through. So that's something to keep your eyes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard about the technology with the holograms where this, you send a crew someplace to film someone and they can actually have cameras up in the place where they're viewing it too, I should say, the hologram, and they can actually see the people you're talking to. It's pretty amazing, the technology.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna kind of go off something Garrison said earlier. IT and AV are kind of meeting hand in hand right now. So IT is gonna be a big thing. At my job, for instance, there's one IT guy, and he's basically our lifeline because without him, we don't have anyone else with his skills. I don't know anything about IT, but I see me looking ahead. That's gonna be something I want to look into. I think I have the mind to wrap my, I have the mind capacity to understand. So I want to pick up on that because he may need someone to shadow him or help him out down the line. So that could potentially create another job down the line. So IT is a big one. Some guys actually that were studying in the program at the same time as me, I know they were they were double majoring. Is that how you say that? They were studying two things at the same time. They study audio and IT, or IT and computer design.
Science.
Computer science, yes. So computer science is a big one too. Computer science, IT, those are things to look out for because we talk about those things daily. I just don't do them. I operate the gear. I don't, I don't really know the toil that goes into them, but it's gonna be something that's big down the line. So I encourage people to get into that.
I agree. A lot of young people ask me, what they should be learning, and I keep telling them, learn how to use a computer, not just how to use it. Like, I know how to use a computer, but I get scared when I have to take it apart, or I got to do software. I usually call someone like Tony, who's way smarter than me, and I have this other friend, Lucky, and they talk me through it, but I'm just ignorant. I'm an old dog. I don't want to learn how to do it. But the truth is, like, the industry has changed. Me and Tony grew up making tape, cutting tape, and using analog and all this stuff. And now I don't want to see another piece of tape for the rest of my life. Like, I'm cool. I don't need that no more.
I think these one thing regarding the emergent technology or the tools, according to this question, if there's any one thing you should be preparing for is the fact that, and it's a skill to learn, I think, is learning how to work alone. Because I think there's a very good possibility you're going to be alone, regardless of the pandemic, because that's going to eventually go away. Isolated working is here to stay, and it's not for everyone, although everyone needs to kind of get on board, because the idea of the kumbaya, like going to the office where the whole team is probably not coming back. And that is everything involved with the new technology is pushing us that way of being remote, being accessible anywhere, instead of just going to the office or just going to the job site. So you may eventually be, mixing the audio or the camera work from your house, while the reporter goes there with just a camera, or maybe the camera will be built into the van and they just swing around the other side of it and stand in front of it, and it goes to you, and then you work on it. But all those type of things I think will eventually be happening, as they've happened in audio, where if you had told me even several years ago that 90% of the stuff I would be doing would be in a room by myself, I would have said, wow, that's like impossible. How could that work? But now everyone has a studio, everyone can generate media and get it over to you. You're going to be alone, sadly, in some ways.
Interesting. I know we're getting towards the end. I'd like to obviously thank everybody for coming, but What about some parting words, some encouraging words or final thoughts for our participants that are watching from here at Webster University? Have any words of wisdom that you'd like to impart on a young version of yourself that is still slugging away and heading towards finals in the next few weeks?
Something funny that I just thought of before this call started. My dad's fairly traditional, and he told me that, Garrison, to get a real job, you need to cut your hair and shave your beard. Not true, Dad. Not true. So, especially in the audio industry, I think it's very accepted of having a not normal look. So something funny to keep with.
Does he still ask you when you're going to cut your hair?
Yeah, every time I come back home, it's like, when are you getting a real job? I'm like, Dad, I got a real job. I'm not cutting my hair. So
That's funny.
I say,
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
I say, make the most out of being in school, being a student. Enjoy the process, because it is a process at the end of the day. I know people are rushing to, thinking about what am I going to do when I get out of school, but enjoy that journey. Take advantage of everything, because the small things you need in the workforce are what you learn being in school. Honestly, like in audio, my professors would be pissed if we showed up late to class. Same thing via a job. When you're working a job, you need to be there on time. In fact, be there early. So make everything that you're learning in school apply to something. You're going to be using those skills down the line. Yeah.
It's good advice. Showing up on time is showing up late.
Yeah, that's big in audio, I know too. Like I said, professors would be pissed at us for showing up late to class. I'm like, I'm paying for class. What does it matter to you if I'm late or not? But they make a big deal about it. But little do you know, the same applies when you're showing up to a studio session. I mean, you have clients, you show up late, they're gonna be pissed too. That's a bad first impression. So, all of the small things you learn in the program, they're gonna apply somewhere down the line, even if you're not directly in a studio recording. All of those things are gonna apply somewhere down the line. I promise you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump off of that and say you can never make another first impression.
Absolutely.
It's a good way to put it. Thank you. Tony Black, would you like to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I guess I could speak on it from a different angle in that, because I've seen a lot of interns or recent graduates who would come into my environment, going back particularly to like in the commercial studio, and not to be like completely negative, but there is a tendency for someone to think that because they went to school and they got the degree, that they deserve something for that, as opposed to actually accepting the reality that they're now coming in at the bottom and they need to like earn their stripes all over again as they earn their degree. So I saw that bite a lot of young up and comers who would come in thinking something was coming to them because they had a degree. And that's not necessarily true. It's what got you in the door, and it was added to your resume, but then you just have to reestablish yourself all over again and prove that actually you have something of value on the next level. And some people took that personally and were upset with the idea that they weren't greeted with open arms, and just handed something, because every time you move into the next level, you're actually sort of in some way trying to take that person's job. That's the way it's looked at, no matter what. And when you start getting into the brass tacks of, okay, we're now competing for the same food, things get different in the actual world of selling yourself and trying to figure out a way to make your way up through the world.
I agree with that. When you're out of school, you're basically starting over. My first job interviews at a college, they were asking me, okay, I see your degree, I see your resume. What are you doing now? What are you doing in audio now? That's the first question they're going to ask you. And if you're saying, well, I'm working at schnooks, but I haven't done anything in audio in over 6 months. Well, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage immediately, as opposed to other people who are actively in the field. That's why, like, for example, after my internship, I was complete with KDHX. I stayed there and continued to volunteer a day out the week because my mindset was like, I don't want to take any breaks. I don't want any gaps in my resume. I don't want to get comfortable working a regular 9 to 5 and neglect audio. All this time I had invested, all this money I had invested, I wanted to show for something. So don't take any breaks. Like I said, value those experiences that don't pay you. Take them anyway. Keep yourself involved in the field.
The one thing that you said earlier that I would disagree with you on, or not just it's like a nuance. I would never say, especially because you do audio, I would never say I do audio on the side. I would never say I do anything on the side.
Yeah.
I just own it. Like I do audio, I do video, I do production, I do graphic design, I do live theater design. Never I do that on the side, because as soon as someone says something to me that like they do it on the side, that's their hobby. That's not really what they're about.
They're not doing it
I would say like I do schnucks on the side to like get some money in my pocket and eat and pay my rent, but I'm an audio guy.
Absolutely. Never sell yourself short, because that's what I was doing in my first interviews. My first interview was with NBC out in Denver, actually, and it was like they were like translating or dubbing audio tapes in different languages for movies, and I completely sold myself short. Like, I knew I wasn't doing a job when I got off the phone. Like,
That's
okay,
not
what are
good,
you
Phil.
doing now? I'm like, well, I work at a hospital. I graduated 6 months ago. I was out the door with that one sentence alone. So, like Tony,
Yeah.
to emphasize on what Tony was saying, never sell yourself short. Absolutely.
Good advice. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys, the three of you, for taking the time out today to come and visit us here at the School of Communications. We can't thank you enough for your insight and what you've done, and applaud all of you guys' path, especially during the pandemic, and keeping moving and working. And Tony, to driving in from New York City to be here today with us.
Just to hook up to the internet. Yeah, makes sense.
But the truth is, all three of you guys, we really appreciate taking the time and coming here and talking to our audio students.